Hmm.
Okay, let's get started. Another week of team talks. This is becoming like one of my favorite weekly calls. I kind of love it because it's a little bit like informal and we just kind of get to the questions. So this week, I've got a few questions that I've listed, but I want to see what I'll get through. I don't think I'll have time for all of it. And I've got Valerie joining me live, which is awesome. So I want to start with you, Valerie, before I dive into any of the other questions. Do you have a specific question, a topic you want covered, or anything that kind of comes to mind that you want me to go over today?
I guess my biggest thing that's in my mind is when you just allow, like when so many things happen in life and like so many setbacks happen for whatever reason, good or bad, and you just completely lose motivation. And I mean, everybody knows what they need to do. It's not rocket science, and you just, for the life of me, for like 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, I felt like I hit rock bottom, and it's so depressing. And you know what you need to do. You know that you see your end goal is not too far. You know that you've made, let's say, X percentage of progress, and in the one sense, how do you give yourself a swift kick in the ass and at the same time be like, you know what, like, this is not the end of the world? Like, how do you balance that feeling of like for me, it was, I mean, the way I was raised was just get on with your life. Just you know what needs to get done, just do it. But at the same time, from you, I've learned to be more uh, loving, if you will. Um, I I don't even know how to. I don't know if I'm making sense. It's just this idea of like extreme lack of motivation. And I remember one of Sayat's, Jordan Sayat's podcasts. He was like, "You get motivation from starting, from getting results," which is absolutely true.
Yes.
For like 4 months, I had like a rush. I was seeing results, even though like sometimes I was like losing, not as fast as I had wanted. So like I had that. Everything was going well, and then I hit rock bottom.
Yeah, no,
And
you
I'm
make
sure
complete
other
sense.
women have had this.
Yes, you're not alone, believe me. I see a lot. It's like that. Well, I'll address that specifically in a second. There's a few things to consider first, but firstly, I love that you are practicing being compassionate with yourself and actually trying to sit there and figure out, well, why is this happening? I think that's a really important step not many people take, and they just kind of, I don't think you've hit rock bottom necessarily. You just went off the plan and off the wagon that you were on, and lost momentum. And I think for you, because a lot of you guys who work with me or have worked with other coaches, we tend to, and this is me also, by like default, we tend to hide when things go wrong. It's,
Yeah,
it's easy to,
I stuck myself under a rock.
yeah, it's easy to show up when everything's going great, you're making great progress, you're nailing your habit goals and your targets and all the things. But it's really, really hard to show up when things are going very wrong. And they do go wrong, right? With everybody at some point. So I think the fact that you showed up, I think, is a testament to you and how you want to continue improving and learning. I think that's huge. So, but just showing up is the hardest part and saying, "Hey, I'm here, help me." And just the fact that you're on this call, I think is fantastic. The second part to that, like to answer your question specifically, um, I think it's always a great place to start is to reflect and look at, all right, well, what did rock bottom look like first and foremost? I think for you that kind of means, correct me if I'm wrong, just going a bit YOLO on the eating, and eating all
A
the
bit,
things. Yeah,
a bit. Oh Lord. Oh God.
going YOLO and then maybe not feeling like being active or training. So it's just being literally the opposite of everything that you have been doing. Okay. Um, so the initial kind of question is, have you reflected and asked yourself why? Like, what triggered me to get there? Like, what happened? Was it an event? Was it stress? Like what was going on at work? Like does anything kind of come to mind for you?
Yeah, exactly. I had like I had a wedding. I managed to get COVID.
Okay.
Um,
Mm,
and at the wedding, that was fun. And then I had a week later, I had my 10-year reunion,
okay.
dental reunion, which was crazy. Um, I don't know. And then like the summer, the I get so hungry in the summer. I don't know about you. Like I'm thankful to have winter because I actually eat less,
You're more active typically in the summer, like you're doing more stuff, more social, going out and like there's more happening. So
right?
that's not surprising. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to have the cooler temperatures. I'm like, okay, I don't have to eat as much.
But yeah, like really think about okay, so wedding it's like all right, letting loose a little bit. Then you
Yeah,
got sick. So you probably this is what I correct me if I'm wrong. This is what I see maybe happening. Like wedding, great. You plan to like have a bit of fun for a weekend and be lenient with things, and then you get slammed with COVID, which is probably at least a 2 week like hits here. And your eating's all over the place. And typically when we're sick, we want to eat things that we can taste and that make
yeah,
us feel good. And then that drags things out by another couple of weeks. And then you have your 10-year reunion. Then that drags things out to have a bit more fun. And it's like it's dragged out for what was meant to be a weekend is now dragged out to a few weeks of, and then it's just kind of can snowball a little bit. Um, that's what it sounds like to me. But what can you add to that?
sorry. What do you mean? What can I add to that?
Oh, as in like what do you feel happened in that time that kind of made you
No, you totally nailed it. That's exactly what happened. And then um, I know I got really comfortable with overeating. Like it's funny, comfortable is such a stupid term at the same time because I'm so uncomfortable. I'm so
yeah.
bloated. I'm so unhappy. I don't even want to look at myself in the mirror.
Okay.
My clothes don't fit good. I don't feel good, but I'm really enjoying overeating.
Well, okay, so here's the thing, right? It's snowballed, and then you're like, oh, I want to eat food. And just for the context for everyone listening back on this, Valerie's been in a deficit for about 4-ish months on like with some breaks in there. So it's still a long time to be in a deficit. So I think the question I would comes to mind for me is I know you wanted to literally lose a few more pounds to hit a goal number, but you lost a tremendous amount of weight. Like you really, like you were aiming for that like 20 pound,
Yeah, yeah.
but uh, it's like at what cost? So I think you're at a point where if this happens and you just have that urge to eat and you were struggling to stop, I think we have to really ask ourselves then some serious questions around is it because I'm striving for that last few pounds? Was I trying to push myself too hard towards that? Is it worth even the last 3 pounds if I feel fantastic? Do I even want to be doing that right now? Maybe I can lose those few pounds more somewhere in the future after we do a health phase. Like there's all these different kind of questions to ask yourself because at the end of the day, I think what you've already achieved is tremendous. Like it's an incredible achievement. You've not only lost a really good amount of weight, but you've also learned some fantastic skills around eating,
Yeah.
which you didn't have before. And you were the most consistent you have been in a very long time, which I think is a huge win and really big progress. So I think that's the question now of is it worth that? Do you want that? And I think only you can answer it. So what if I was to ask you right now, like gun to head, what is it for you? Like what would your answer be?
I completely agree with you. I mean, that would basically mean up the calories for let's say a month and maybe get myself into like a high caloric maintenance phase. So about let's say 2200 calories. Um, I mean that's a I mean it's funny you always look at a goal and you think to yourself, okay, I need to get this done in 9 months. Um, I mean, I don't know too many people that can necessarily do that, and then at what cost, which is what you said beautifully. Um, So yeah, I mean, if I get it, let's say 6 months later than I had anticipated with a break in the middle, I mean, yeah, that's
Yeah. So that's something like you and I can discuss like more one-on-one for you. Like we don't have to have an answer straight away. But I think like it's okay, especially if you've been in a deficit for a while. At some point, we need to start a reverse diet. So for anyone listening, like the reverse diet is when we add calories back in slowly. Like the goal is to help your the the amount our body adapts during the deficit, we're trying to reverse that from happening, reverse those adaptations, sorry, like through a reverse diet, get you to a really good maintenance calorie range without gaining or minimizing weight gain as much as possible. And then we get you stay in that health phase for however long we need to, and then we start it all over again. So you should really be cycling these things. And the it's like that question of how long should we be in a deficit? It really is as long as one, it's sustainable for you, and two, you want to be.
yeah,
And whether we start seeing little red flags pop up. I don't think you've had any red flags up until now, but if that was something that came up for you, that's something you and I need to discuss and really consider and for you to think about. Like, do I want to keep going? You can, if you wanted to, like, look at this as a break and then go back down. But I would personally say, well, if you're struggling to build consistency now, we would pop you on like where your maintenance is now, to even if it's for a few weeks, but build consistency around tracking again and your eating skills and meal structure and those things before we even kind of look at, hey, do you still want to be in a deficit for a little bit longer, or do we want to call it and start the reverse diet? Either route, we need the structure back. So that's when it's always great. If you're struggling, I highly recommend to most people that taking calories away again straight away is not typically the best idea, because then it makes everything harder. Like that's the problem. You already have this urge to eat, like we need to kind of create some normalcy and get those feelings away and feeling neutral about food again before you take calories away again. So I think that's something we need to look at for you um moving forward. But yeah, don't and the motivation piece to that is motivation doesn't come like motivation comes from taking action. And like you said, Jordan Side talks about it, which I love. His stuff, I very much relate to him a lot with his coaching style. Um, and yeah, like it is essentially that. Like motivation just doesn't come out of thin air. And that's where we talk about I just don't feel motivated. It's like, well, I tell you, like probably 80% of the time, I personally don't even feel motivated, and I've been doing this for 15 years. So, if that tells you anything. So, I think that's I think we need to normalize that we're not going to feel motivated most of the time. And we're going to have times that life feels a lot harder and it feels a lot harder to be working towards our goals. And it is about taking action, especially if I don't like using the term fallen off the wagon, but like if you've gone off plan and you've kind of reverted back maybe to old habits that you're not happy with, you're not feeling as good as a result, then the question is, I would say, what is one action you can take every day right now that's going to build your momentum back up? Like literally pick one. I had another client actually 2 weeks ago. She had a really tough weekend. She's like, I didn't track, I didn't do this and that. All we did for the next week was prioritize water intake. Literally,
yeah.
that's all we did. And she was like, yes, like that. I managed to do the water, I feel much better. And it's a win, we need a win right now. So I think that's where don't put the pressure on yourself to do everything you were doing. Cause if you look at it from day one of coaching with you, we didn't do everything from day one. We started with a few things and then we added the things. So by the end of it, you are doing a lot, but we've built up to that. So now don't put that pressure on yourself to be like, I have to tick every box I was already ticking, when no, we've kind of reverted back to some old habits, and that's okay. That happens. We're human. They're ingrained in us sometimes. All right, what's one thing I can do? What's one thing I can take action with every day this week? I can then add the next thing the next week. And then, so that's what I think. I love that you were trying to be more compassionate with yourself. And it's like now moving forward, just take that pressure off. Even if it's, I'm going to eat 3 meals a day again, like for you, like your meal structure, instead of just trying to maybe not eating some of the day, binge eating later, or like whatever it might look like, right? including your treat with every meal, like doing all those things. I think just that in itself for a week would be powerful for you personally, just because I know your history and kind of what you've been struggling with. And then we add all the other stuff. Like
Yeah.
that, I think is great. And if you want to exercise, great. If not this week, don't. If you want to just walk, or if you're trying to move, great. If not, we can add that next week. Like whatever you feel is doable for you. But I want you to pick one thing, execute that. And even if the next day you're like, huh, oh, this is good. This feels good. Now I want to walk 2 days later, you can. But it's a matter of, hey, just one thing to start. Like you said, like you need the action, and the action is going to lead to a result, and the result is going to lead to motivation. And then you add the next action, then you see the result, then you get the motivation. Like that's the cycle that actually happens. And that's what happens with our habit stacking, is what we do essentially is, like you said, we add the next thing. You're like, okay, I can do this. I can do the meal structure. Great. That feels good. Okay. Now let's add a 10-minute walk a day. You're like, only 10 minutes. I'm like, yes, only 10 minutes. Okay. Well, I did the 10 minutes. That felt so easy. It's making me want to do the extra 15 or another 20, right? So again, you see the result. Oh, I felt good from doing that. I want to do the next action. Does that make sense? So
Yeah,
that's
completely.
how you're going to build your motivation back.
Yeah, so just really take baby steps,
Yeah.
literally.
And for some reason, I feel as though most people, and this used to be me too, so I know this all too well, we feel like the baby steps don't matter.
No, but they totally do, especially with the motivation.
Yeah, like I feel like with you, I mean, tell me how you're feeling after everything. Are you feeling like overwhelmed to start everything again all at once? Or is it like, oh, if I just do one thing, it's not going to be impactful? Like, what do you have your thoughts or feelings been around that?
No, that's exactly it. Because like I would wake up every morning, and the one thing I would always consistently do. Oh, actually, this is a lie. The one thing I would try to consistently do, let's be truthful, was having like a high protein breakfast, just to get myself started for the day. Ironically, I always train. I don't know what it is. I that is so ingrained in me.
That's fantastic. That's
At least 3 times a week. So that thankfully, and let me tell you, holy crap, when you're overfed, you are an unhappy
oh,
soul. And
yeah.
oh, like I would like literally go in my own little corner because I was like, oh no, this is not gonna go good.
Yeah, you don't feel too good training when you're stuffed, and particularly like you do CrossFit, so it's quite high intensity. So to be pushing weight, jumping around, all that, it's probably
Ugh.
not feeling so good. So then the other component of that is I don't know if at any point you've done the finding your why exercise. I think that's such a powerful exercise to do
Yeah,
often, even if it's every 3 months. Like I think it's always sometimes that needle moves and the reason why you're doing something will change. So I think for you, go back to that as well. And anyone listening back here, if you haven't listened to the why training, it's also on the podcast. Go listen to that. It's such a powerful, simple tool, simple exercise to do that you can do like any we could literally do that sitting there with your phone open on your notes. Like it's so easy, but it's so powerful to be like, why am I even doing this? And how do I want to feel? Like for you right now, it sounds like you're like, I don't want to feel like I'm feeling this isn't good. This is old behaviors I used to do. And it's a reminder of how you don't want to feel.
yeah,
Um, and it's like, why is this important to me to make a change? Like, why do I want to do that? So that's um a powerful exercise if you can get that done this week. But another question, I always love to ask questions, like as in self-reflection with things. So I think even asking yourself now, if nothing changed and and I was kept doing this that I'm doing right now, the same path, how would I feel in 3 months? How would I feel in a year? Like, what's the cost of doing this now
yeah.
in terms of like going YOLO and, overeat? Like, what is the cost of that? So I
That's
think,
exactly what I thought about the entire time. I mean, in the grand scheme of thing, it wasn't a huge amount of time, and you'll see in my check-in, I actually didn't gain all that much weight, which first of all, I was so freaking proud of myself that I was able to take my weight. I'm like, I was looking down at that thing. I'm like, you are not my freaking like you do not control my life. I
Yes,
am
I
not
love this.
I'm not like I'm not indebted to you. I can get on you and I'm not going to go crazy. Anyways, I was so freaking happy that my weight didn't go up that high. I had gained like essentially I think 3 pounds, which is nothing.
Nothing.
So
And
happy.
it's gonna be up because just from the sheer volume of food and the weight of the food, digesting the food, especially if you're feeling like bloated and a
Bloated.
bit
Yeah.
yucked, but and it just goes to show like we don't need to be afraid of food. But we don't obviously the issue here isn't you eating more food, it's eating to a point where you're uncomfortable, not feeling good. That's the issue here. So I just want to preface that, you know, um,
Yes.
you
100%. And that feeling like I need to, I don't know what, like I need to like numb a sensation in my body.
well, that's when
Um,
we, yeah, go back to really taking a pause and
mm,
trying to identify the feeling in the moment. I know that's really hard because in the moment we're like, I don't care. F everything. I just want to eat this. It's gonna make me feel great. I don't care about anything else. Um, but like I think now that you've kind of become more aware that this is happening, that you don't want this to be happening, if you do get that urge again, it's always take that pause and identify the feeling. Like what is it? Am I stressed? Am I just lonely? Am I bored? Am I tired? Am I anxious? Like whatever you can kind of identify. And that's a hard exercise. Like you have to really kind of sit in your feelings for that one. Um, but once we identify that feeling, that's when we can go, okay, what do I actually need to fill this void like that I'm in right now? So yeah, like there's a lot, like it could be anything, right? I don't know if anything comes to mind now that we're talking
yeah.
about this for you. But
Um,
that's a
the
powerful thing.
the funny thing, this slight little tangent, but I think what had also happened was about maybe 3 weeks ago, my sister, my eldest sister that lives in Florida, she called. Well, no, I had spoken to her in the morning, and we had like one of the best conversations. She put me in the greatest mood. And then after work, I was like, you know what? I'm going to call her again. So I called her. Horrible idea. I don't know what happened. That girl was not in the mood that she was in the morning. And she destroyed my my uh um my, um my food regime that you and I set together. And I know logically that what we're doing completely makes sense. I have followed so many Instagrammers. I have looked into the science of calorie. I mean, I knew from the beginning what I needed to do. I just needed to change my mindset. Long story short, oh, she was destroying me, destroying the carbs I'm eating. I'm not eating enough protein. I'm being scammed. I shouldn't be in a weight loss phase for 4 months because I'm going to have low thyroxine levels. Oh my god! And
Oh,
I knew, I knew it made no sense,
okay,
but
here
I
it
don't
is.
know. It played with my mind in such a way, and then it just sent me for a spiral loop.
Okay, you said 3 weeks ago, right? When did all this start?
About, yeah, like three, and that's when I started to like have like a bit of like a dwindle.
Trigger, there it is.
Yeah.
So that makes sense, right? And then you start questioning everything and you start, but here's the thing, here's the kicker. If you, and this is hard to do, even for anyone listening in the program or thinking about coming into a coaching program, you always, given you have a half decent coach, right? That is there for you. That's the we think, hope.
Oh, no
Um,
offense to you. I'm so sorry.
No, oh, no, 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 this is what I'm just
At
saying.
all.
No, this makes sense with the next thing I'm about to say, but this is where you have to come to me, not run from me. Not all coaches you can do that with. I've had bad experiences with coaches where there's no way you could go to them with any kind of issue. But, there's always a great thing to then talk out and go, "Hey, this happened. I had this conversation. This has made me doubt everything." And if you have a supportive coach, they're going to be like, hey, like, let's talk through it. Let's, whatever questions you have, let's see, just basically like to help reassure you, or if you should be able to question your coach and their process, and you're allowed to do that. You should be allowed to do that for everybody listening. If you can't, then find somebody else. But yeah, that's where I would say to you, that would be the only thing in hindsight I would recommend. If anything happened again, like, come and discuss it with me.
Mhm.
Because I am here to help you, right? You don't have to go it alone. And I'm not going to take offense to what someone else on the outside looking in is speculating about when they've never done my program, right? So I'm not going to take offense to that, because I'm like, well, you don't know because you've never worked with me. So let's discuss, like, if do you have any concerns, like, let's talk about it. So I think that in hindsight for you would have been a great step. That it's okay, we'll learn from everything we do. Um, but yeah, like, at the end of the day, like, that sounds like it was very triggering for you, because it's from someone that you love and trust and is family. And we all want, like, validation and support from our family members with whatever journey we're on, for one. So that must have been really hard for you to hear. Um, I would say that that was your trigger. And then it's like with an emotional spiral since then, to be honest, where you're like, well, if this is all wrong, then what am I even doing it for? YOLO. See you later.
That's exactly what happened.
Okay. I've been doing this for a minute, just saying.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I
I
was
don't
like,
like
"Oh,
to
man."
assume and speculate, but just, yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. But this kind of sounds like what went on.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
But
then
does
you were
that,
so cute. You messaged me twice, and I'm like, "Okay, I need to talk to
yeah, I'm like, stop hiding from me. I know something's wrong.
you."
Um, but yeah, as it like at the end of the day, like, I am here to help, right? So now that we've kind of realized that that was the trigger, like, what do you feel you could have done differently, or what may have, like, does it make more sense? Like, tell me your thoughts. I'm curious.
No, yeah. I actually, when I didn't speak to you about it simply because I was ashamed, because I
Okay.
knew it didn't make sense. Well, it's not that it doesn't make sense. I mean, at the end of the day, it's calories that matter. And I know she's on like a keto phase, and I just, it's like, for me, keto is like, stay the hell away from me.
Yeah, it's
Um,
great for some people, not for others. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. But at the end of the day, what the hell's it matter how many fats you eat versus carbs? Um, I just, I guess I kind of was ashamed, and I didn't want to, like, I pride myself on educating myself, and like those Instagrammers that just educate themselves through Instagram posts, I just have no patience for them.
Mhm.
But I somehow got affected by this. So in hindsight, yes, I should have talked to you. Um, but yeah, I guess I just was ashamed.
Yeah, and I mean, I think those feelings are normal, like, common. You're not alone. Trust me, I've had plenty of clients over the years who things went wrong, or like, whatever, they didn't get support from family or whatever happened. And it is, you feel like, oh, and sometimes I think for you too, you're someone who is in um you're a health professional, and it's like, well, you feel like you should know all this stuff, or should be able to learn from social media and whatnot. But honestly, it's not the case. Like, I don't want I've worked with other, like, even like MDs and stuff who come to me for coaching, and they're like, I should know. I'm like, yeah, but it's a little different. Like, that's your lane, this is my lane, like, or this, I'm not in your lane. I don't know what you do. I could read all about it, but I'm not gonna diagnose someone with something, right? Um, so yeah, I don't feel bad or ashamed. Firstly, I think they're normal feelings to have, but you don't need to feel that way. It's just, firstly, I think the fitness industry on social media is a bit of a shiz show, like, of information. It's so difficult to
Navigate.
actually navigate. Like, honestly, if I'm 15 years into this of learning, and I still have more to learn. Like, it's endless, which is one thing I really love about it. But for you seeing there saying, I should have known better, logically I knew, but, and then I'm trying to get info from, like, social media, and I research and this. Yes, but there's so much variance out there. It's like, well, what's working for you, Valerie, in this moment of life? Like,
mm,
that's what's important. How do you implement what you need to implement for your goals in this season of life right now? And that could even look different a year from now. So
yeah,
don't beat yourself up for feeling like I should know better or like I should have, like those feelings, let them go because you only know what you know. You don't know what you don't. And this is you in this season of life, like right this second. This isn't you 6 months ago. This isn't you a year from now. Like it all changes. And just look at where you were 6 months ago or prior. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Compared to
mm,
now. It's not even about the weight loss for you. It's really like you didn't even have it. You were scared to eat like treats, and if you did, you overate. Like there's so much to your journey. So yeah, I think I just want to kind of really reiterate that. Like, don't feel shame. You don't need to feel shame around that because you just don't know. You don't have to know everything. Like, if that
yeah,
makes sense. I don't know. I still don't know everything. I'm just, learning some things as I go and I add the next thing and the next thing, and it's taken years. Like it takes time. And the biggest piece of the puzzle, I'm going on a tangent here, for most people is like I've even worked with other coaches who are coaches who do exactly what I do. And it's not about, they know at least what I know, or if not more. And the knowledge isn't the issue for most people. The issue is implementation for what's going on in their life. Like you could know everything, but implementing it while you're trying to navigate work, relationships, life, stress, it's like you don't even have the energy to implement, let alone what am I meant to be implementing right now to help me? Sometimes you might have all the knowledge, but it's the implementation is the missing piece of the puzzle. So, um, that's a big thing. So I think my opinion on that is it is difficult when it's family because you just like, I just want you to support what I'm doing because they're people that are close to you. But I always encourage you to focus on what do I need for me? And you're the only one that can answer that. Like what is right for me? And
mm,
if that even starts to change during your coaching program, as the plan progresses, then we change the route of what, like I said to you, is it even worth? Are you in the right mindset for a deficit right now? That's something we need to talk about later. But it can change. So I think just focus on even over the next I'll be doing a check-in tonight, by the way. I have it on
oh,
my list. But I think this week that's what we talk about and we can go over you can start kind of meditating on like what is right for me right now. What do I want right now? Not without any noise from anybody else. What's going to make you the happiest right now? I think that is key and that's what I always want to come back to when you do confront those conversations sometimes. And that's what I would encourage you to do in the future too and go, okay, man, that was a tough conversation. It's not what I wanted to hear. That literally killed my soul because it's against everything I am doing. But what I'm doing, it makes me happy and I'm getting a result. So do I want that? Like, what do I actually want? Like, you can ask yourself those questions. I think that's always important. Bring it back to what you want. And if someone doesn't support you, it's not their
right?
life. Like that's why I say I'm like, it's not your life. It's not their life, it's yours. So I think that's something that you have to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it also reminds us to just be kind to people no matter
Oh yeah.
what goal that they're trying to achieve. Like even me, I'm the type of person where I want to educate people so badly that I think I come across a little too intense. And like I'll get mad at someone for doing something the wrong way. And this actually just made me feel like, you know what? If it's working for them, you do you. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna be kinder to people now because
No,
I'm
that's
like,
good.
that destroyed me. I was like, what the hell?
Listen, I think when it comes to health and fitness, there is the science and that is what works for the individual.
Mm,
Right. So we have the science, but if you're like, I can't stick to what the science is telling me, like with what I've got going on right now, then it's not optimal for you right now. Maybe it's going to be optimal at a different time in your life. So I think always, yes, I love that. Be kind because that's where I'm like, unless someone's doing something absolutely outrageous that's causing them harm, I never
yeah,
have an issue with the approach someone wants to take with their health and fitness. Like your sister wants to do keto right now. I personally don't like keto for me because I feel terrible on it. I've tried it a couple of times and I'm like, I hate this. But other people, other clients I've had, they love it. They feel great. My husband actually thrives on more of a higher fat, lower carb diet. He loves it, feels better. My body needs carbs and I function better on carbohydrates. So, or higher carbohydrate ratio. And, that is completely fine. I just like to always stick to parameters of minimum. So, okay, we need at least minimum a certain amount of fat, etc., because our bodies need that to make hormones and other processes that are vital for our optimal health. But yeah, at the end of the day, like if it's you enjoy the process and it's still a healthy way to approach it, and it works for you, like that's all that matters. So that's how
Yeah, yeah.
my take on that.
Mm,
There's no right or wrong. It's like what works for you. Unfortunately, you might not agree with it or you might hate it for you, but if it works for them and it's not causing them harm, you know, that's what I remember. Just going off another tangent, this is kind of turned into more of like a free conversation, which I actually really like. But I remember thinking, I will never be an intermittent faster. I never, how can people fast? But after having kids, I kind of by default started fasting in the morning a little bit, nothing crazy. I didn't have any set rules like this time I have to eat and whatever. But with the chaos of the morning, I found I wasn't eating till like 11 or 12 for a good like year or two. I was like, oh, I technically am intermittent fasting. I didn't even realize. um, but yeah, it's interesting. And I was like, so years ago, before I knew better, I was like, no, that's terrible, blah, blah. But now I'm like, listen, I don't think it's necessarily optimal depending on your goal for certain goals, but it's not a bad thing. And I have clients that do it. So yeah, like you have to just change your perspective on and look at it that way. So that's where I would encourage you to look at, well, what do I want? What works for me? What makes me feel really good? Because you were crushing it. You were literally
yeah,
everything we're doing. You loved your meals. You were having foods you really enjoyed. The ice cream was in there every day. Like, you were enjoying the summer. You felt confident with making food choices, eating out. You were like having burgers and I'll have some fries, but I'm going to have this too. Like, you were so in tune with things you enjoy, but also what your body needed for your goals, and you were crushing it. So it just sounds like there was a trigger there that threw you off emotionally. It happens. Don't beat yourself up about it. And now it's like, all right, what is the next action I need to take to just keep moving forward? Like that's really it for you, I think.
yeah. And also just move on, like let it go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is
it's
what it is.
really the past.
I think something important to highlight from this conversation, I think and thank you for being so brave to come on here and share like something hard you went through recently. I don't think people do it often enough. It's like there's this shame. I don't know why we do it. Like I don't think people do it as often in other areas of their life as we do with our health and fitness goals. It's
Hmm.
almost like, oh, I didn't track a meal or I didn't eat what I was meant to. I missed a workout. And then it's like the world is over. Whereas we don't do that with other areas of our life. Like, I don't know if you, like, I don't know, if you got to work a little bit later, the world isn't over. It's not ideal, but it's not over. And you just move on and get on with the workday. Whereas, like, without food and training, it's like the world is over and we've ruined everything. But it's not the case. So I think it's important to remind everybody and you that a health and fitness journey is never linear, particularly like looking at fat loss as well. It's never going to be linear. There's always going to be bumps in the road. Your progress is going to be up and down. And I think that is really to understand that and have the expectation that of I'm going to have moments where I mess up. I might mess up a little bit sometimes. I might mess up really badly sometimes. And it, like you said, hit rock bottom. I don't think this is rock bottom, but I just think you just had a not gone to plan a couple of weeks that you didn't feel so good about. Right.
I
So I
I think
think,
it felt like rock bottom just because at one point I was like, fuck it. And then I kept on imagining all my goals just disappearing.
but really in reality, they haven't, right? Like you're
No.
like, oh, I only gained like 3 pounds and okay, now I'm pulling myself out of it. So it's like, I think switching your expectation to this is going to happen. I'm going to have moments like this a bit over the years because we all do, I still do years later. And that I'm going to just make sure each time this happens, I'm going to be better prepared every time.
Yeah.
That is the perspective. And hopefully there's more time in between moments like this. Like that's the goal, to like stretch it out, like it doesn't happen as often, right? Because next time I guarantee you, if you have a phone call like this after this conversation, you're most likely going to be like, huh, that sucked, but okay, I'm gonna just let it go, and I'm gonna focus on me. Like that's all I can do. So, we learn from our mistakes, and I really am a firm believer in, like, I expect you guys to make mistakes during
Mm,
your program, because, and I think it's important to make mistakes because that's such a powerful thing to use to learn from and then to grow from and look at like what do we need to do. So yeah, I don't feel bad thinking about it. I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to apply it. If this happens next time, I know exactly what I need to do.
yeah, that's a very good strategy. I remember like literally 4 days before I spoke to my sister, and my mother had the same sort of conversation, and I like gave my mother like a talk for like 30 minutes. And then she calls me like after like my like minor meltdown, and she's like, "So, how do you feel?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Shit." I don't know why, but I feel like shit.
Yeah. Oh, but it's good. You need to talk these things out. And honestly, too, I feel like coming from, because I have a European family, I'm Croatian. Like everyone's like, you're Australian. I'm like, yes, I was born in Australia, but Croatian through and through, like whole family. And
That's cool.
yeah, they were the toughest. I remember when I first started my health and fitness stuff, they were the toughest to get on board.
Yeah, they were no nonsense.
They were really like, they just scrutinized everything in the beginning.
Mm,
And it was tough because I was much younger then. It was like early 20s. I think I was still living with my parents at the time, so I couldn't like hide anything, right? Um, and yeah, it was really difficult to especially get my mom on board with that. But once I was like showing her and explaining and this, and then she was like, oh, this is great. And then she started eating more protein, and then she started walking more. And, so I think in the beginning, like sometimes to get your family on board, if they have strong beliefs with something else, it's so hard. But through conversation, through explaining like how this makes me feel, why I'm doing this. Like the longest time, even I don't think my mom's still on board with me lifting weights because she just comes from that generation. But, years of just close conversations explaining the benefits and how it makes me feel and why I like to do it and all those things. It does get easier, I promise you. It does take some work to like explain if you want to. Like I always was like, no, I want my family to support me, but they just don't understand it. So that could be a case as well. It's like, well, maybe your sister just doesn't understand. She only knows what she knows. So she doesn't understand what you're doing and why it's working for you and why it's healthy for you and all of those things, right? So then that's another perspective to look at, kind of treating it with people with compassion. I look at it as like, how you get trolls on Instagram or on the internet? Like they just troll people's like content and just say terrible things in the comments section, which just still baffles me why people would even stop and say that. But not comparing people unsupportive family to trolls, but I think it's
it
important to
feels
understand.
like it.
Kind of sometimes, right? Because family are brutal sometimes. But I always I used to get so triggered by trolls and comments and stuff like that, or someone not agreeing with me with what I'm doing or whatever it is. But now I really take the perspective of more compassionate approach. It sounds so counterintuitive, unless they're just being a complete peanut. But there's always one. Um, but it's more like, what have they got going on in their life that's making them really be insensitive about something that I'm doing? Like, what's triggering them? I
Mm,
always look at it at that way now, and it's kind of, what's the word? Freeing is probably the word because it doesn't trigger me anymore. I'm like, hey, I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm happy. I'm healthy for the most part. And I'm helping other people. And so why is this triggering to you? So if it's like kind of a case of, hey, you are one, losing weight, keeping it off, happy, feel sustainable, enjoying food, and you get to eat carbohydrates, you're still eating a very decent amount of fat, good amount of protein, and training the way you love to train. Why is that triggering to someone else to say it's all terrible? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what
Yeah.
that's where I come from of that perspective, because I definitely know that what we're doing is not harmful whatsoever. Um, so yeah, it's interesting to see that, and I'm like, that's always the question I go, "Well, why is it so triggering to you? What's the conversation we need to have?" And I think that's something that only you can answer, is like what conversation you want to have with family around those things. But again, comes back to, you don't have to feel ashamed about anything that you're doing. If anything, you can ask questions, you can double check things with me and say, "Hey, I just want to double check, like, let's say you were concerned about fat intake. What's the amount I should be having? Like, do you think it's too low, like this, or why?" Like, we can talk about those things, right? So you can always ask and confirm just for your own peace of mind. But yeah, now I forget where I was even going with that. But is that helpful?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just to take a different toll, because it just leads to so much emotion, and then frustration, and I mean, taking yourself out of the equation and being like, you know what, maybe this person's doing this and this and this because for whatever reason, versus that's not my situation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So again, always bring it back to you and to anyone listening, like, focus on you and what your goals are, what's sustainable for you, what you enjoy. Um, and yeah, like it's and it comes back to the question of, yeah, like, how long should a fat loss phase be? um, it really depends on the approach you take to the fat loss phase, how
yeah,
sustainable you're making it. Are you taking breaks where food is higher? Are you doing that frequently? Are you feeling really good? Are you getting good results still? Are you, like, it really does depend on so many things. So you can't just look at a fat loss phase as, oh, that person's been fat loss for 16 weeks. That's bad. Why is it bad? You don't know the context. Context is everything in health and fitness. If it was someone on like 1,200 calories doing 2 hours of cardio a day for 16 weeks, I might be like, not really ideal. That might have some serious consequences. But if it's someone whose calorie is actually pretty good, they're not that low for that person's body type, or body composition, and they're taking breaks, they're enjoying it, they're not overtraining, they're tackling everything else in life like stress, sleep, recovery, like, and everything's like ticking a good box. Then it's a question of, well, like we talked about, do we call it because you just, like, kind of over it? Like, where do we have to get to that number, or do we move on to a health phase? Like, it really does depend, like, on the context and what everything looks like as well. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like for example, the Jewish holidays are about to hit. So like for me, it would be easy for me right now to be in a caloric deficit and then kind of just gear up for a month of overeating in a sustainable way. Instead of
Well,
overeating,
yeah.
maybe then go to like my maintenance.
Or, like, you could do that and just take a diet break over that time. You could do a month diet break. Like, that's actually completely fine, but it'd be more controlled.
Yeah, like
Um
maintenance.
Yeah, or it's like, all right, do we start reverse dieting now? So your calories are probably even higher than what you think they might be in that time. So it's up to you again, what
Mm,
you want to do. And we don't have to answer that right now, obviously. But yes, possibilities are kind of endless. And you've essentially just done a 3 week diet break, or like probably surplus, most likely, a slight surplus. But your body responded really well. Like, you're someone, like you said, you kept training, which I think helped you so much. um, like you said, you sounded like you had so much more energy to push with training, but you just didn't feel physically so good, probably from your a digestion perspective. But yeah, like, you haven't, I don't think you've undone anything. It's just been more like, oh, I just don't feel good. I don't know how to get out of this now. Like, that's really pretty much it.
yeah, yeah. And it's funny because I remember thinking, oh man, I have to go back to weighing my food. I have to go back to preparing my meals. And just like what you said, the baby steps was really helpful. So when last week you told me, you know what, just eat your 3 meals and have a snack, and let's like talk about it later, or like let's reconvene on Monday. I really like that because it took like a really easy approach. You're like, okay, eat your food,
Mhm.
don't overeat maybe, but eat your food. And
Yeah, and
then
curious, like, how that helped this week.
it was good. I actually ended up being a little stricter than I had planned on, or that you and I had planned on, and it fell nicely. Um, yeah, that was it was really, really good.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah,
See? Baby steps. That's already one action you took, like, and that's fantastic, and sometimes we just need to take that pressure off ourselves when things go wrong, and things are gonna go wrong. Like, I would be lying if I told you nothing ever went wrong for me with and I've been doing this and practicing these skills for a very long time, and man, I have days where I'm stressed and eat way more than I plan and whatever, and I'm just like, "It's okay, it happens." What do you do? Like, you just move on and get back and take the action the next day and get back into it. We're all human. We all have these challenges that pop up, and I think that you just have to keep showing up. You don't
yeah.
have to do anything extreme. Like, I'm curious, actually, let's say before this program, if you had a few weeks like you just had,
Months.
or months, okay, what would then have been the next step, the next action? Instead of just having the 3 meals, what would you have done instead?
Oh no, sorry. What I meant was like I sidetracked for, let's say, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It would have lasted months. This
Okay.
would have easily taken me to November, December.
Wow.
Yeah,
And
easily.
that's
It's
already
huge.
huge progress. That's incredible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, it would have taken me months and months and months to get like my stamina back.
Then once you got your stamina back, then what would happen?
Same thing. I would sometimes I would be able to be consistent for a month, sometimes a week, sometimes 6 months.
But what would it look like? Like, I remember you saying you were cutting out, like, certain foods and treats and things like that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I would have difficulty. I would always be scared to have something sweet, so I would just say no, thank you for like a few months. Um, yeah, it's not. I mean, like what you said, I know the knowledge. It's implementing it that's a whole other kettle of fish.
Yeah, so it sounds like you literally snowballed and then went into a deficit that sucked. It's
Yeah,
terrible. And then it's like this vicious cycle, like we go back and forth, and you don't learn to identify your feelings, your emotions, or how that's linked to food as well. Like, you don't know how to navigate. When the summer comes up, it all just turns into one big free for all, like it with you, it sounds like. And the fact that you were someone that used to go months of, like, a snowball, and then this time it's been literally 3, not even 3 weeks, because we got you out of it, like, last week, really, was step 1, really, like, about 2 weeks.
yeah,
That's massive, like, that's such a humongous improvement, and just in what, 5 months?
yeah, yeah. It feels really, really good.
That's
Yeah,
amazing. Like, not just saying this, like, you should be so freaking proud of yourself, like, that is incredible to be
yeah,
able to do that, like, that's improvement. So, another reason to not beat yourself up, like, you had this tough situation, and it lasted 2 weeks instead of, like, 4 months, like, that is wild.
yeah, yeah. And it feels very, very good with that. Yeah,
Yes. So now take that and say, well, okay, next time I'm gonna make that even shorter. Like, I'm not gonna let it last past a week. I'm gonna help try to identify what's going on. I'm gonna get support. I'm gonna whatever you need to do, like, to learn from this to help improve it again next time. But to improve it by literally months is wild. So take it and go, okay, it was a tough couple of weeks. It sucked. It's not where I want to be. I don't feel so good, but man, did I freaking improve from what I've done in the past, which is a huge win. And I'm going to take that. And now I'm going to take the next step. So use that That's already action and progress. Use that as your motivation to take the next action. We just did your food structure. We'll take the next thing. We'll talk about that tonight. And we're going to keep adding the next thing. Like that is amazing. So if you can keep doing that, you're going to get to a point where one, these triggers won't affect you at all, hardly. Like, or you might have a day.
Yeah.
Like, like it's pretty cool to see that full picture of what's happened and what's going on.
Yeah, 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 and then just remind myself, like, "You know what? I was able to get through this. Let's
Yeah.
just do it again." And then what did I do? And, uh,
Yeah.
I mean, it means that I need to, like, have you in my back pocket for, like, years to come. But yeah.
Well, we'll teach you how to not have to have that, right? Like that's the goal. I don't want you forever. I'd love you forever, but I don't want you forever. I don't need you to. You don't need me. But my point is, like, I'm literally sitting here, like, I want to shake you so bad and be like, Valerie, I don't think you realize how much of a big deal this is. Like,
Yeah,
this is a huge deal,
yeah. Yeah, I could have easily taken this
man.
past all the Jewish holidays, past November, into December.
Like you
Yeah,
gained 3 pounds, it's nothing. Like you could drop that's all just like you just dropped that in fluid like in a day. Like that's you literally like you should be so proud of yourself for pulling yourself out of it. Like that's massive. A massive, massive, massive deal. I can't even explain.
yeah.
Like
No.
hearing the whole picture. Like obviously we talked and I got some of the picture, but now seeing the full picture, I'm like, man, this is dude, I don't say dude a lot, but dude, like, come on.
No, it feels
Like,
good.
not so nonchalant about it. You're like, yeah. I'm like, no, this is amazing. Please realize it. So take that to help you reflect on, the next steps. And you just, yeah, it's part of it. It's okay to mess up. It's part of it. Like, and that's where you can literally see what did I do last time this happened? Oh, it would have turned into something massive. Like, you know what I mean? Reflecting on where was I last time this something like this happened? What did that look like? Reflecting on where you were compared to now is such a game changer too. So anytime something like this comes up where, you are triggered, obviously now we know what steps for you to take and you can remember that. But also reflect, take a second. Where was I before? What did it used to look like? Like that can sometimes be a big boost in the right direction that you need to help you like overcome that tough situation and be like, well, man, I handled this so much better than I ever have, ever. It sounds
Yeah,
like for you. And that's going to be such a game changer with losing the weight, keeping it off for good because you know how to tackle these situations. Obviously, we're not going to keep you in a deficit forever. I think it's not the goal. But, it's like whether you're in a deficit or not, these triggers, these situations are going to pop up. So we have to learn to manage them the entire route, no matter what the goal is, whether you're in a deficit, more of a maintenance, reverse diet, health phase, or a surplus, like, whatever phase you're in, this will be there. These will pop up because life happens without us expecting it. Like things happen all the time. And I feel like that's a big part of why a lot of everybody, not just women, fail or stop start over and over again, or you lose, like in your case, you lost 50 pounds and then gain most of it back. It's like, well, you're missing the pieces of the puzzle that you never worked on before. And now you're doing it. And the things that you think are like the worst thing ever, like literally like the last 3 weeks are the worst ever, but that's a piece of the puzzle that you sometimes it's necessary to go through. Obviously, I want you to feel your best all the freaking time, but sometimes we have to go through those hard weeks to learn from them so you can apply it in the future. So don't beat yourself up.
yeah,
You're doing awesome. Like, you came back, you showed up and you're like, I'm ready to just help me. I need help. I need support. And that was probably the hardest bit to do. So it's all you needed to
yeah,
do, which you did.
yeah. I could have ignored you,
I
but
know.
I
No,
was
I would
like,
have called you.
"No
That
way,
was my next.
seriously?"
If she ignores me, I'm calling her. I see you on Instagram viewing the stories. I'm like, I know she's there. I pay attention to everything. All of you listening, anyone on my coaching program, I see you.
I love that. That's awesome.
I may not be talking to you every second of the day, but I see you. And I know you're there, and I know, like, I've been doing this long enough when I know someone needs help and needs the extra support, like typically we go quiet because of two things. One, things are great, you just got busy. More often than not, it's because I know something's up and you're too scared to tell me because you think I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, like you suck. Like that was terrible. Try harder because we've all had that coach before. I've had that before as well. And then you don't want to tell people. So it's scary to admit that you did something that you didn't plan on. It is scary. And I think that's where people like you get the absolute most out of this program because you show up rain or shine. Doesn't matter. And you will get the most out. You'll get more out of this program the more you put in, just like showing up on the call after a tough time, sharing the vulnerable time you went through with everybody, that's going to listen back on this and being vulnerable about it. Come show, like that is when you're going to get so much out of this and you already have, but to continue to. It's a testament to you as a person. So anyone else listening to this, like you need to show up, rain or shine. That's it. You just have to show up, whatever capacity that looks like. Even it's I'm really stuck, I need extra support. Like that sentence alone is like game changer. So yes, Valerie, I just want to applaud
Thank you.
you because I think, yeah, you're awesome. We're going to get over this and move past it easily, and you're going to just keep going and
Yeah,
keep crushing it. So I have no doubt in
thank
that.
you. Well, Jordan said it really, really well.
He's
In
one of
one
my
of his
favorite people on
podcasts,
the
I
internet.
love
I
that
love
guy. I love that guy. And he swears like I do. He's like my idol. I love that guy. What did he say? He said, "You haven't actually like even if you fuck up," he was like, "Just keep on going." And then he said, "You haven't actually failed until you've totally given up."
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's totally true. And I constantly think about that because it's like I wanted to the entire time. The entire time I was like, okay, I could just simply like the thing that went through my mind, I'm sorry, was I could just delete the app. I could just
Yeah, but
delete
I have your number.
I could just delete everything and I don't have to talk to her and we're good and we just pretend this didn't happen.
Yeah, but then what? Then what? Then what? Like,
Then
what
I
does that?
gave
That
then I
doesn't do
failed.
anything. That doesn't do anything to me. What does that do to you?
It completely screws me.
Like that would suck for me because I'd feel so bad. I'm like, what happened to her? Is she okay?
Yeah.
But like from a compassionate place, I'd be so like, are you okay? Like, what is going on? But yeah, like, what does that mean for you? Then what?
Yeah.
Then nothing changes. So it's so interesting. I actually, someone else in the program, I won't name who it is, but recently mentioned in one of her check-ins that she was scared of failing because she's making awesome progress. But she's scared of failing because she's like failed before, like plenty of times trying to like get back on track with things. And she came from being like an athlete and everything and now just couldn't get out of it where she was. So and she's like, I'm scared of failing. And I'm like, well, why do you think you would fail? And she's like, I can't remember what she said. She's like, well, because yeah, like I don't want to revert back to like old stuff or all those things. And I'm like, well, the only way you wouldn't fail if you just didn't show up. Like that's the
That's
only way
exactly
you
it.
could
Yeah.
fail is if you just didn't show up. And I don't even mean do the work, right? Like just show up and be like, I'm here, this week sucks, like help. So you still have to obviously do the work at some point, but like even that is so powerful to be like and vulnerable. And that's such a hard and difficult thing, like such a difficult thing to do is admit I need help. I'm really stuck this week. Like I just couldn't get it together this week or whatever it is. But that wasn't the case with her. It was more just she was like already putting in her mind, oh, I could fail. I'm like, what is fate? What does that even mean? You're not going to fail unless you just stop showing up and we stop working on skills and we stop working on things. Like you're constantly moving forward. Even if you take two steps back, 3 steps back, show up. we'll take more steps forward and we'll keep pushing forward. And this is what this is all about. And I'm going to say this a billion times over. It's just about gaining momentum, creating momentum. That is it. How fast that looks like, how slow that looks like, even if you revert back or feel like you've taken 10 steps back, you just have to create the momentum again and keep going forward. Like that is literally it. That's as simple as it is. Obviously, as you and I know, it's much more difficult to try to implement. Like that's the hard bit to learn. But when you do, like you just literally keep going. That's it. So I'm freaking proud of you.
Thank you. But you actually said it beautifully. It's the small steps. When you were just like, you know what, let's focus this week on water. Let's focus this week on protein. And then you feel really good. You do your 10-minute walk and you're like, okay, let's turn it into 15.
Yep.
And then so on
Absolutely.
and so forth.
Absolutely, exactly. So keep the baby steps. You'll hear from
Thank you.
me by this evening anyway. I'm going to call it there because we've been talking over an hour.
Absolutely.
How fast
Thank
did
you
that
so, so much,
go?
guys. I know you didn't answer any of the other questions.
Doesn't
I
matter.
feel so bad.
They can be there for next week. I have like such a backlog of questions from like months of like check-in forms. I can't answer every week the extra stuff. So we're good. They can wait. It's fine. But I loved this
Perfect.
conversation. Thank you for
Thank you.
being very vulnerable with it. Hopefully this helps anyone else listening. Thank you for sharing. It's such a tough thing to do, and I'm excited for you to keep crushing it.
You're awesome. Have a great night.
Thank you. You too. We'll see you in Telegram, okay?
Apparently.
And
Bye-bye.
everyone else too. Bye.
Bye-bye.